Let's talk as well about a big story coming up this week. It will be very big. The assisted dying bill, front page of the Telegraph today, says the vote this Friday is likely to pass, according to most MPs. Let's talk to Rebecca Wilcox, daughter of Dame Esther Rantzen. Rebecca, very good morning to you.
Very good morning to you.
I mean, a very, very complicated story, this, really. I mean, some people don't think it's that complicated, but lots of people that I speak to say it's the one issue they can't be really sure about what they think. They've kind of flip-flopped around. They started thinking it was a bad idea. Now they think it's good, but they're not sure. Other people have gone the other way with it. Have you ever seen such kind of, shall we say, just different opinions on something like this?
Oh, yes. Well, don't you think that every huge vote that has ever happened in this country has massive differing opinions? But what I would say to anybody that is in doubt about whether this is a good idea is to head back to the Health and Social Care Select Committee report, which came out earlier this year. It was 14 months of investigation, and it's laid out in really clear black and white fact as to why assisted dying can work for this country and does work around the world. What it shows is that the slippery slope doesn't exist that people complain about, and it's a myth, and palliative care will not get worse. It will stay the same or get better. It also shows that people that have the knowledge that they could take this up, the end of their life is just calmer and more stress-free, even knowing that they could do it, that they could take up this assisted dying thought and, you know, avoid the pain that would happen at the end of the life, that pain that crosses the opioid barrier. That's the problem that we have, and it's for people that have it depends upon which bill you're reading at the moment, but between 6 and 12 months left to live. It is so carefully safeguarded as well. I can't tell you how I went through the bill with a whole load of KCs who had brains bigger than planets, and they pointed out that the patient has to apply and talk to a doctor or a lawyer 8 times before it is agreed upon, and the doctor who would be administering it has to talk to someone 5 times. Those safeguards don't exist at the moment. So what we have at the moment is a dangerous, messy law where nobody knows what they're allowed to do and things can slip through the net. This bill would bring in safeguards, would bring in protection and peace of mind for people who are already facing the most awful death.
Yes. The Justice Secretary, of course, disagrees with you. She says that this would be a sort of death as a service offered by the government, and she doesn't think the state... And some people are worried about the state being this involved in such an important and personal decision.
I'm so interested by the people that are coming out against it. I think a lot of it is actually faith-based. I was very interested on the weekend that all the faith leaders were talking about how the NHS can't cope and the safeguards, which means that they haven't spoken to the experts, the independent experts that I have spoken to, because obviously I am asking for my mother to be allowed this. My mother is my person. She is my number one. Why would I put her at risk? I would never put her at risk. So I've been talking to all the independent advisors and researchers and scientists, people who know the NHS inside out, who know the NHS better than Wes Streeting, who obviously is an evangelical Christian. What does that say about his opinion? I also think it's very interesting that at the moment the NHS already has several multidisciplinary clinician panels in place that do organ donation, live tissue donation. So that's kidneys and livers. The donor is still alive and hopefully will be afterwards. They already run these panels. They could be adapted for this. The facilities and the legislation is in place. The whole scaremongering seems to be a bit dark, a bit devious. I suspect Machiavellian sources behind it, but then I'm getting slightly paranoid in my old age.
You might have been doing it for too long, you know. Because people look at stories like this today in the Mail online. The sarco-suicide pods will soon be coming to the UK because the guy who made those over in Europe says he'll put them on the market as soon as this bill is passed, if it is passed. And so I think people look at those kinds of stories and go, you know, am I going to be walking down the Aldi central aisle and suddenly there's a death pod that I can buy to take home and put my mother in, you know?
I'd
Seriously, though.
Towards the end of these debates where sanity and fact and evidence has been so brilliantly brought up into the argument, then comes madness at the very end when people are desperate for you to listen to their side of the story. I know very little about these suicide pods other than the headline that you quoted. I saw that too, and I just sort of giggled because I thought that's ridiculous, that's not going to happen. Have you looked at the bill, Daily Mail, who I work for quite often, so I really don't want to offend you too much, but have you looked at the bill? Have you looked how many safeguards there are? You're not going to find one of these pods on the central aisle of a well-known supermarket. No. You're not going to walk into your surgery and say, I would like to die today. It is not going to happen like that. It is going to be at least a 3-month process. It is so carefully regulated.
Sure. Listen, great to talk to you, Rebecca. I'm sure we'll talk some more this week because this is a big week for your bill. Rebecca Wilcox, daughter of Dame Esther Rantzen there.